Hey
Hey
there.
Joe, how are you?
What's going on?
Not much, not much. Excited to be speaking with you.
I am
Thank you
too,
for
man.
having me.
Yeah. Thank you for taking time out. I really enjoyed the album, and we had a fight to get to this point, huh?
I know. It was so surreal, and I'm happy that you were flexible because it was pretty last minute, and I hate doing last minute reschedules. So
No worries. Absolutely no worries. So before we get into your album, A Love Song, I want to know, you know, COVID really went through the jazz community pretty hard, and I'm curious how you survived that 3-year period now that we're entering this post-pandemic phase of reality and how it changed you.
yeah, I don't know how I survived it. It was pretty crazy. I also did some pretty insane things during COVID. During that period, we sold our home and we moved into Manhattan right when everybody else was fleeing Manhattan.
Uh-huh.
And but we at the time were living in New Rochelle, which was the you want to even call it the epicenter of that's the first place where they deployed the National Guard when COVID hit. And we had no idea. And then our phone started blowing up, with texts from our friends saying, "Are you guys okay?" And we're like, "What's happening?" So we were pretty unawares about it. But then it became really serious, and we had put our home out for sale in Westchester some time back. So when the sale actually went through, it was like bang in the middle of 2020 in the August time frame, and we moved in, and then we did a full gutted renovation in a Manhattan place. And again, everybody said, "You're nuts. You probably want to rethink this." And they were right. But I think in coming out of it and in hindsight, it all played out really positively for us. We're living in a wonderful home now, and just very grateful. So from all of this birthed all the songs and the tunes, and even I feel like the trying periods are fertile ground for inspiration for writing music. So that's how it kind of all came together for me.
It was a big Bob Dylan moment for all of us, I think. I mean, if you couldn't get inspiration from what we've been living through, you shouldn't be in this profession of creating.
Yeah, yeah. But with a positive tone, at least for my music, for
Yeah.
my album, had ended up with a there was a silver lining at the end of it all for us. I'm very grateful that we weren't, impacted the way adversely the way some families have been. But all in all, I think when looking back, we came out much further ahead than had it just been life as normal
So the
coming out of
new,
the pandemic. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So the new album, A Love Song, is it kind of a, how does it feel? Is it kind of like a triumphant, what we're coming out, we're going to do live music, the world's coming back?
I love that you asked this question because it's when I had my band together, and I typically give them notes, and we talk a lot, and we kind of talk about the intent of the music. And Kate Victor sings the lyrics to it. It's just one track, which is the title track, with lyrics, and Kate Victor delivers them, and I think she did an amazing job. But I remember writing to her and saying that it's we're not trying to make it anything. It's the truth. It is what it is. It's something that I turned 50 last year, and it's kind of like a understanding of life, without necessarily taking a negative connotation to it or a positive connotation. It is what it is. We survive in a system with cause and effect. You realize things about friendship, relationships, where you live, who you live with, your loved ones, what matters, what doesn't matter. And there isn't like, oh, this is so phenomenal, or oh my God, it's all hopeless. It really is just kind of like coming to terms with, this is the truth. And I really felt like she needed to not make it like a diva song, or undersell it or be very like introspective, just to kind of state it as it is. And I thought she really delivered on providing that message without coloring it right in any way, shape, or form for the user, for the listener, I should say.
So speaking of the listener, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Yeah, so my music, I try to, like I mentioned earlier, I don't I think of myself primarily as a composer. I don't try to force the composition process. So I live life, and then the inspiration hits, and I write the music. Uh, I feel because the way the music is conceived and then arranged, I feel like the stories of and they're all stories. Like that's how I come at it. I feel they're very relatable. people will hear it and they'll be immediately, in my opinion, transported to a reflective moment or an inspirational moment or a hopeful moment. And I want listeners to kind of enjoy this because there's a storytelling arc not only in every song, but in the entire album. You know, it starts off with a hopeful note and then it goes into an like an awestruck or wonderstruck note. Then it goes into some heavy music, or I should say heavier, darker, where we're reflecting on history and what it means to us today. And then it's kind of letting go, a renunciation of, you know, in the absence of answers of the track. And it's just like, let it be, let things happen. You know, we don't have to understand everything, don't have to force everything to kind of, you know, make sense of it. You know, trust your gut, trust your intuition, and do the right thing. And I think then the last song, a love song, is just, you know, brings it all together with a narrative that's, you know, very simply stating what I've learned in my 50 years.
So you're originally from India. Talk to me a little bit about how the seeds of jazz got into you, early influences, and how this took off for you to come to America.
Yeah, so I my father was a drummer, a jazz drummer. He was performing and stuff, and you know, in clubs and things like that. And then he stopped performing like when the kids were born and growing up. But he had this extensive record collection. So I grew up listening to just, you know, Dave Brubeck and Coltrane and Davis and you know, just you know, even James Galway on flute, and you know, just like a complete Michael Jackson, the eclectic. uh, but I remember having these conversations with him where like I couldn't really understand why jazz. And then he would tell me like, well, it's because it's really hard to play. It's intricate. It's not, you know, it's not uh, swill. You know, it gets into the meat and potatoes of music. And so then I started developing an appreciation for it. But I never really uh, started playing it. I'm also self-taught, so I was just, you know, playing pop rock with garage band and you know, being young and I guess uninformed. When I was 22 years old, I you know, I left everything back. I had a little family investment that we spent to pay for the first semester of my postgraduate studies at New Jersey Institute of Technology in Newark, and I applied to go there because it was closest to Manhattan. You know, again, I'm this is like in the 90s where we didn't have phones and things, and we literally had to lay a map out and figure out how far you were from the city. And I came here with illusions of grandeur of becoming a rock star. This terrible guitar player, by the way, and no understanding of, you know, of what the instrument could be utilized for. And then serendipitously, I rented a room in the 1985 Danish composer of the year house in Newark, which, you know, this is in itself its own story, because how does, you know, somebody who's on absolutely top of the game end up in a house in Newark and had this thriving music scene going on that I became a part of. And it's there because I was exposed to world-class musicians, and not just the music, but the people. And I think that really is the key, because you got to see who these people are who are making this music, and they're all deeply flawed and, you know, also deeply inspirational, and you know, the whole gamut of everything. But to see that as a young man at 22 and really get into it and see how not only they're playing, but they're interfacing with each other, they're interfacing with the community, with the clubs, with, you know, the ownership. How are they navigating all these things? Uh, and so that's kind of where I learned not only the music, but also how to be somebody who can organize people to an end.
So what was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away?
Oh, so you know, I don't actually recall specifically, but I do remember it wasn't a performance. So Attila Engin, who was this composer of the year from Denmark, originally Turkish born person, had a basement which he had converted into a studio. And he had at the time a New World Orchestra, and they were rehearsing. And I remember going down to down in the basement and sitting by the rehearsal. And I called my mother that weekend, because I would call back to India every week, and telling her that this is the world's greatest band that I got to see. You know, it had such an impact on me as a young man that that would have been like the first experience. And again, it was a jazz fusion. It was fully it wasn't like bebop or straight ahead or anything. This was like immersed in Turkish global, you know, 7/8 rhythms, you know, just amazing things. And I remember being just knocked, having my socks knocked off, and that made an impression on me. And obviously since then I've seen everybody, Mike Stern, Schofield, Victor Wood, and all the guys, and I really have a great appreciation for watching them live as well.
So, as a practitioner of the jazz arts, there's a lot that goes into from composing to performing to recording. But what do you like the best? What is it that really gets you going about being a professional musician?
Uh, so the way I compose, there's a component. This composition is the short answer. I really it's just almost spiritual for me, because I become very silent, and then the music just comes to me. I don't I almost have to forget everything I know from a technical aspect when I compose, and then when the melody comes and I feel satisfied with it, I put it through some disciplines, and either playing with a pedal tone or playing with the harmony, making sure the melody is still compelling through that, and then when that all works out for me, I move forward. But that inspirational moment is pretty special for me, and I really cherish uh, I cherish that has become an experience that I have come to live with now.
Yeah. If you could get into a time machine and see anybody in the history of jazz perform live, who would it be?
Oh, I'm a huge fan of Keith Jarrett, and I know he's still with us, and I haven't actually seen him live, but there's a part of me that almost doesn't want to meet my heroes.
Yeah.
Just I just want to enjoy the music. But I love what Keith Jarrett does. I love his composition, the fact that he's in the moment, the fact that he sometimes gets upset with the audience. You're a back and forth with him, but I really appreciate what he brings to the table from an artistic standpoint of creating in the moment, and so yeah, I would enjoy that very much.
So, from your perspective, coming back yourself into the music, live music, and with a recording, how do you see the jazz community right now coming back? Do you think it's stronger than it was before? What do you think the strength of the community is now?
I think the music community is hungry to come together. I think so. I also serve as a board member for the New York chapter of the Recording Academy, and one of the things that I'm tasked with is to ensure that we have a thriving music community. So I do see that there is definitely a bigger appetite for people to organize, at least in the New York area, to support one another, uh, just to kind of move us ahead. And I find that very heartening, because I know what it was like in the '90s. I felt extremely isolated, being an artist, and this feels very different even from about 5 years ago, right? And so pre-pandemic, as we head into the pandemic, I think the pandemic has kind of allowed people to just take moments to understand what's important in life, and then I think they're aligning towards those goals right now. So yeah, so my short answer would be I feel very heartened by it.
So, everyone out there has a perception of you, your family, friends, fans, but ultimately you live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm very complicated. I think I'm complex. Even I as I'm growing older, I'm becoming even more defined in my knowledge of what I like and what I don't like, who I like and who I don't like, and I seem to be setting up my thresholds very clearly. Uh, but yeah, but I feel, yeah, I don't, I feel it's hard to encapsulate an entire human being, especially with a diverse background. Like I've had a life story that's had many ups and downs. To 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 be a single faceted object, I feel like it's multifaceted, and given the circumstance, I may respond that in a manner that may surprise many people too.
Yeah. So, a love song, where can people pick it up? Where can they learn about live shows? Anything pertaining to your world?
Yeah, so my website is a great place to start, noshirmody.com. It's available on all streaming platforms, all the usual outlets that you would get music. And In terms of live shows, I just, I've transitioned from doing like these Noshir Mody sets, where we do the whole album, to like doing showcases, and I've been doing this for a few years now. So it's a diverse number of artists that get together, and we recently performed in Newcastle. I've done performances in San Fran, LA, Rhode Island, you know, in spaces. And so we have one coming up in December in New York as well. That's going to be the Green Room 42, which is right next door. Uh, and then we're also performing in LA in October. So I'm really excited about that at the Clive Davis Theater. So, you know, a lot of good things coming up.
Right on, man. Hey, this has been great. Thank you so much for opening up. Thanks for your time. Best of luck with everything as we move forward.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.